Tressel, and I'd like to welcome you on behalf of Armanino to today's webinar, Comparing Cloud versus On-Premise ERP. So the first thing I'd like to do is go over how to use your webinar pane. You'll see the webinar pane in front of you. Please note that the orange arrow will allow you to minimize or maximize the pane. If it is minimized, simply click on the orange arrow to bring it back. All webinar participants will receive an email within the next 3 days with a link for a copy to the slides and the recording of the webinar. Feel free to submit any questions that you have for our presenters throughout the duration of the webinar. Our presenters will handle those questions at the end of the webinar as time permits. Also, if you are using your telephone to listen in on our webinar, please make sure you select Use Telephone. If you're listening through your computer speakers, please select Use Mic and Speakers. If you have the incorrect settings selected, it will produce an echo sound. Remember, to qualify for California continuing education, you must use a personal computer and log in with your own information and unique URL. You must be logged into our online software for at least 50 consecutive minutes within the scheduled time frame of this webinar. You also must actively respond to at least 75% of the polling questions and complete our evaluation survey at the end of the webinar. So these are based on the California Code of Regulations, and we wanted to make sure that you have all of these points in front of you. Our first presenter today is Teresa Brown, a consulting director in our Microsoft Dynamics practice here at Armanino. She's been selling and implementing GP for the last 15 years, either on-prem or in the cloud, depending on the needs of the customers. She is also master certified on Microsoft Dynamics GP and is a certified instructor for Microsoft. And our next presenter is Lindy Antonelli, who's also a CPA and an AICPA certified IT professional. So she's been running a consulting practice for the last 2 decades and merged that successful practice in with Armanino last year. Lindy leads the Armanino Cloud Accounting Solutions practice and chairs the Cloud Accounting Institute. So I'm happy to have both presenters, and with that, I will turn it over to Teresa Brown.
All right, thanks, Mary. I just wanted to take a moment to talk about our learning objectives for the webinar today. First, we're going to take a look at the differences between on-premise, cloud, and hosted options as well. We're going to look at the advantages and disadvantages of both scenarios. And then finally, identifying which option fits best for your organization, the best fit, the timing for that, and we're going to talk at the end about the cost of the solutions.
So with that, we're going to start off with a polling question and get everybody in the spirit here. So for your company, are any of your company's business applications in the cloud today? So we'd like all of you to respond to that, and we'll give you about a minute to register your answers. We've got about 70% of the group have answered, so we'll give it a couple more seconds. And great, it's looking like we have a high majority. So let's go ahead and close that poll, Michelle. All right, and so the answers, I think, are pretty reflective of averages here. So 65% of you said yes, 26% said no, and 9% are unsure. All right, and with that, I'll turn it back to Teresa.
So, excuse me, those are great statistics. And now, moving on from that, I mean, it's a telltale sign that a lot of you already have experience with the cloud, and some of you are just kind of embarking on that. So we're going to start by taking a look at some of the historical and current trends in computing and what's important to buyers today. Understanding the differences between on-premise, cloud, and hosted as well. We're going to take a look at the cost, maintenance, hardware, and software related, and then talking a little bit about the telltale signs that you are ready to move to the cloud or move to an on-premise solution. First, let's take a look at some of the historical and current trends. If we look at this slide, it really shows the evolution from a technology, economic, and business perspective that we've had in computing. From the inception of the large mainframe computers, which had very high upfront costs for both the hardware and the software, into the PC era where we had distributed storage, etc. And for those, you you purchased a perpetual license and operating system for the software. Moving into the cloud, then we're moving into larger data centers where you're paying as you go and only paying for what you use. So I think this slide is a little compelling. Some statistics from 2012 and 2013 about those of us who are either already in the cloud or embarking on going into the cloud. Approximately 82% of those mid-sized companies today have a remote workforce, and probably you are one of those. Telecommuting is becoming more of the norm than it used to be, and so that allows our workforce to be mobile. So it's really interesting when we hear people say it's in the cloud. It's kind of a mysterious little place that your software kind of lives, and we'd like you to understand what that means.
All right. And so we're going to launch our second polling question here. Okay, so what percentage of mid-sized companies already have a remote workforce? We're checking to see if you're paying attention to the stats we're throwing at you. So take your best guess to remember what we saw just on the slide previous to this about mid-sized companies that have remote workforces. And just as a reminder, we're asking you questions and keeping you engaged, but certainly if you have questions for our presenters throughout the webinar, you can just type those in your webinar pane, and our presenters will see those. So we're going to give you about 10 more minutes to answer the polling, or sorry, 10 more seconds, not minutes, to answer the polling question. So if you've not voted, please go ahead and register that vote of yours. You will not be docked if you have the incorrect answer. We just want to make sure that everybody